hell's wrong with Bill about facts? Facts here? We got no facts here. Anyway, we're going to talk to Pat Boylan in just a minute here, Pacers radio Heat and Sideline reporter, since the Heaters are getting ready to take on the Pacers tonight. And I got to tell you, man, this is probably one of the Heat is one of the best stories in the NBA. Okay, I mean, there is no doubt in my mind that the Heat is one of the best stories in the NBA. But right there with the Heat is the Pacers. It's such an awesome story. And without Oladipo and watching the growth of all these other players, and again, watching a coach get another opportunity that he deserves, finally, by the way, and getting the recognition, because he has been an awesome coach in the past. You know what? Let's get to Pat Boylan from the Pacers so we can talk a little bit about the Pacers tonight, taking on the Miami Heat. Pacers are 15-4 at home, 23-14 overall. So in other words, they're playing really, really well. Pat, good afternoon, my friend. Thank you for taking some time. I was just telling the audience that the Heat, we all know, is one of the best stories in the NBA. But I got to tell you something. The Pacers are right up there with them. We didn't expect the Pacers to be this good, and especially without Oladipo. How is it that they've been this good, my friend? Thank you for joining us.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, and I think you're dead on. I think if you look at, some of the most impressive stories in the NBA, I think most people look immediately at Miami, and then once again, Indiana doing what they're doing without Victor Oladipo, and they've now missed Malcolm Brogdon for a third of their year. That's too. Right. And that's probably their second best player or third best player also. Really ever since Nate McMillan took over, he's had just this kind of calm, consistent aura about him. And I think the players have really fed off of that. And it's maybe a little bit of what's going on in Miami too, where it doesn't totally matter who's on the floor. They have a tendency to perform. Now, you notice in some games, you struggle down the stretch without your best players, and obviously in the NBA, you need your stars with you. But, I think first and foremost, they've defended over Nate McMillan's tenure, and when you defend well, you give yourself a chance in a lot of games. And it's not the most exciting answer, but the ability for the second unit to go play with the starters and the third unit to come and fill some of those spots in the second unit, you've seen a lot of players really step up that have been called upon when they have, and then ultimately I think Domantas Sabonis has taken a huge step forward at the center position, a lot like I think what Bam is doing in Miami.
Pat, the part that baffles me is, how the hell was Nate McMillan without a job? How was he not a head coach in the NBA forever now? How is it that guy would even get fired? Because he's done an excellent job wherever he's been. We all know, those of us that are old enough, and you watched him as a player, he was a hard-ass, hard-nosed defender, one of the better defenders in the league, one of the best team players out there, the kind of guy that you knew could transition to coach because he had that kind of work ethic. The fact that guy's had to bounce around, it's baffling to me. And he has proven over and over again that he knows what the hell he's doing.
Yeah, he certainly has. That Portland team went through really a change of an era. He went through a lot of bad luck there, of course, with the Brandon Roy injury and everything that happened there. And they, for whatever reason, decided they wanted to, kind of hit the reset button and I think move on with a new coach. And the Pacers were fairly quickly able to scoop him up as an assistant under Frank Vogel, and he sat there for a few years. And then when Larry Bird, who was the general manager and president at the time, made the decision to move on from Frank Vogel, he had Nate McMillan sitting right there, and the Pacers do everything really quietly. You don't typically hear a lot around trade deadline and around if there is a coaching search, and that was the case a few years back. You didn't really hear a lot, and then all of a sudden it was Nate McMillan's the guy. And I think it was probably a fairly easy decision for Larry Bird. He had a guy who had a ton of experience, who's had a lot of success sitting on his bench. He knows the team, the city, the franchise, and all of that, and obviously it's turned out to be the right decision.
So where is Oladipo, my man? How far away is he? Because I know we're getting closer and closer for his return.
Yeah, I think the hope is, that it's within the next month's time or so. The team has not put a timeline on it. We've seen these reports from Wojnarowski and Yeah, I think they're confident it's getting closer. We get the chance to watch him a lot in practice, and he's doing just about everything. And so we will see maybe in a couple weeks, 3-4 weeks, that you will have him back on the floor. I think at some point the next step is the team will put out a timeline, but what we get to watch at practice, he participates in all of it. He regularly goes and practices with the Pacers G League affiliate in Fort Wayne, too, which I think is a good sign because they're ramping up his practice minutes, too. And the only thing that I'm really confident about this whole thing, because, again, the Pacers operate in a way that, information does not get out very often. They're being conservative with this, and I think for good reason. You've got a guy who you want to be the face of your franchise and one of the faces of your franchise for the next 4 to 5 plus years. And you don't need to rush him back and risk, further damaging anything that he's done by pushing him ahead a couple weeks. Could he play right now? Maybe. I don't know that answer. I would guess Timmy would maybe say yes. But if you hold him on for a few more weeks or even a month extra than he needs to, and you're able to get him, from 90 to 95%, then I think that's something the Pacers are very interested in doing. And it helps, as you talked about at the start of the show, the boat's not sinking right now. There have been stretches of play, and recently the Pacers have struggled a little more than they'd like to. But the boat has been kept afloat, and they're very much eagerly awaiting his return, but they're not desperate for it either.
My brother, if you were 14 and 23, he might be on the court. But you're 23 and 14, so it's right. It's so smart to hey, you know what? We're doing fine. Let's make sure he's 100%. And then when he joins the team is playing well. And hell, even without Brogdon, which you just mentioned, that's a huge loss. And let me tell you, the Holiday kid has been huge. How about Sabonis? How good has this guy turned out? I didn't expect him to be this good. Did you expect this good, Pat?
Well, I knew when the Pacers made that trade for Oladipo, for the Paul George trade back a few summers ago, that Domantas Sabonis, it wasn't that they didn't love Oladipo, they did, but Domantas Sabonis, when they looked at the secondary piece with a lot of these trades, I really think he was the one that maybe tipped that trade in their favor and ultimately ended up being the reason Indiana did that deal, because they really liked him, although at the time it would have been foolish for somebody that wasn't a scout to predict this kind of thing would have happened. He was a bit used incorrectly in Oklahoma City because, they had Westbrook and Oladipo and they didn't need a guy clogging up the paint. But ultimately, you watched him, especially last year. I think last year is when I started to get the idea that maybe he could be this type of player, because he was terrific off the bench, really strong, big-time rebounder. And it's like, well, what if you give this guy, what if you're able to give him 5 to 6 more minutes a game? Now, the challenge is you've got Miles Turner in the front court, too. And so the Pacers are sort of bucking a lot of conventional trends and wisdom by playing Turner and Turner and Sabonis together. But he's so consistent. I saw a stat the other day in terms of, how a player performs at their best and at their worst and how consistent they are. And he was in the top 5 in the NBA. And I think especially a team that doesn't have Oladipo and has missed Sabonis, has missed Brogdon for so long, a player like Sabonis being as consistent as he is, I think has been extremely valuable.
Yeah, I think, and Miami has had a smaller rotation lately with 8 guys. They haven't been playing Olynyk as much, and they got James Johnson back. I'm wondering, does Olynyk get more time today, or do they use James Johnson because of the 2 guys that you talked about? What do you think? Do you think he goes a little deeper with one of those guys to kind of combat and try to play defense against those 2 big guys?
I think in general what you're talking about is a fascinating chess match, because the Pacers see this pretty regularly, a team that wants to play small versus themselves, and who has to adjust to the other. Sometimes it's the Pacers. Sometimes you'll see Nate McMillan have to trot out lineups with only one of those bigs on the floor. I'd have to go back and look at the Miami game, but I think that might have been a case. I think Sabonis was not actually on the floor really late in that Miami win over Indiana a couple weeks ago, which was one of the better games I think the NBA's seen all year.
Yeah.
And so in that case, it was the Pacers feeling like they had to adjust to Miami. So a lot of times it kind of depends on who sets that initial tone and what's working well early, whether the Pacers can keep those 2 bigs out there for a consistent amount of time. But it's nice to have a player like Olynyk and a player like James Johnson on the bench and not necessarily have to play them, but if you do, these are veterans. These are guys you can trust, and these are guys you can count on. And if that is the case for Spoelstra tonight, you're getting players, I think, that are more than capable of handling their own in those situations too, even if they're not quite at the caliber of the Pacers starting base.
Pat is with the Indiana Pacers radio team, of course, the host and sideline reporter. You can follow Pat on Twitter at Pat Boylan Pacers. Pat, the other thing that I find awesome and impressive about the Indiana franchise, period, it's not going to be a sexy free agent destination. And they know it. And so kind of like Utah, they're like, okay, well, we know we're not going to be luring people. Plus, they're not big on spending that kind of money like that in free agency. But they do the alternative. They're incredibly smart at drafting, trying to be crafty with trades, those kind of things to keep themselves ahead of the curve. And I find it really interesting how Indiana and teams like Utah, they have to be better than most at actually breaking it down when it comes to, drafting players and making trades. They cannot afford to make mistakes like the Lakers can, or the Knicks, or the Heat, or teams like that sometimes can erase things with a checkbook.
Yeah, I was just going to give that Lakers example, because if the Pacers had gone through a few years of management like the Lakers had, they would be in a lot of trouble. But I think you look at really just the history of the Pacers, and Utah is I think, a really, really good comparison. Even recent history, the Pacers lost, Paul George, and they lost Gordon Hayward at the same time, and all was doom and gloom for the two franchises. And then Donovan Mitchell comes in Utah. They draft spectacularly well. The Pacers make this, really strong trade that gets them Oladipo and Sabonis. You go back to their history. They drafted Oladipo they drafted Paul George after 10. Or at 10, they drafted Reggie Miller after 10. So they've also done it without having a ton of high draft picks. And recently, you look at some of these moves that Kevin Pritchard has made, it's been tough to find a move that hasn't worked for the Pacers. You're right. I mean, they're not – Malcolm Brogdon came over technically on a trade, but he was a restricted free agent, wanted to come here. Milwaukee wasn't able to re-sign him, so a deal was put together. He and David West are probably the two splashiest free agent, quote-unquote, free agent acquisitions the Pacers have made over the last decade, and yet they made it work. They drafted really well at the 10 to 25 area. They've been terrific in the trade market, and they've been able, to strike when the iron was hot, and Malcolm Brogdon is a great example of that. And when he came over, I think a lot of people weren't totally sure what he was, because he was underutilized in Milwaukee for very good reason. They've got maybe the best player in the game over there, and so he was turned into more of a shooter. And the Pacers saw a player that they thought could be, a prime time point guard and a big time guard in this league, and kind of run that offense, especially without Oladipo. And that's another bet that they made that has completely paid off. But you're right. The Pacers free agent history in terms of getting big names, David West might be the biggest. And yet Indiana has found different ways to compete, whether it's through the draft, whether it's through trading. And it's so much more important, obviously, because if you miss in those areas, you're not getting the free agent. You would really struggle.
No doubt. How's the buzz, Pat, for the team, and especially on a night like tonight when the Heat are going to be in town? That this is a marquee game in the NBA right now tonight. But I wonder how it is in that town right now for the Pacers.
No, the buzz is high, and it's really kind of been at a really high level since Victor Oladipo came over. I remember that first year, and it was, took everybody by surprise, and then year two sort of solidified that they were a really good team. And then here they go again with, the 23-14 record and missing so many of these guys. And so I think you're seeing a lot more people come into games being interested about what the Pacers are doing on a day-to-day basis versus more of a week-to-week basis. And it helps. That game in Miami a couple weeks ago was one of the best games all year long. Miami won it on a shot with like 5 seconds left, and then Aaron Holiday had a chance to win it himself and missed it too. But just in terms of entertaining basketball, that was like a 10 out of 10 kind of game. And so I think a lot of people saw that. We're expecting a good crowd tonight. The buzz here has been really, really high. I think there's excitement around what Sabonis is doing. Brogdon, if he can get back into the lineup, there's been a lot of excitement around him. And each day you kind of creep closer to this Victor Oladipo return, even though it's not totally sure when it's going to come. You just kind of feel the anticipation grow and grow a little bit more. And it'll be really exciting to see what it's like once he does come back, how the Pacers respond to him returning into the lineup, and the way the top 6 teams in the East are checking out from everybody, which obviously includes Miami. You know, Milwaukee might check out from the rest of the 5, but there could be a really good battle in there for 2 through 6 the rest of the way. And, you know, the difference between being a 2 or a 6 is it's massive. And so those could be, I think you could see some really, really entertaining basketball from some of the top teams of the East in the final 2-3 months.
Pat Boylan joining us from the Pacers, and of course, Pacers are hosting the Heat tonight. And you talked about Brogdon. I don't know if he returns or not, but again, great management. Holiday and T.J. McConnell, two guys that, I mean, that's like a really nice insurance policy that if Brogdon can't play, you got a couple guys that are true professionals really filling in, and Holiday has been a really nice addition.
He has. The Pacers drafted him a couple of years ago, and, you know, not a super high draft pick, but they were a little surprised he fell to him. And in year 1 last year, he showed flashes. He was really good at points. There were portions of the season where he wasn't playing. There were portions where they kind of relied on him, and this year he's been asked to carry a much heavier load, and part of that has been because, unfortunately, Brogdon has been out more than the Pacers would like. He's still showing some of those signs of inconsistency. He had a couple of back-to-back games on the road where he struggled recently in Charlotte and the game before that. However, he's also had games. The Pacers played Toronto 3 weeks ago, and in that game, Indiana was down in the last couple of minutes, and he hit, I would say, 4, 5, 6, just really significant, meaningful shots down the stretch, got the game into overtime, and ultimately, you know, in an arena where you had Kyle Lowry and Siakam was out, but, you know, Sabonis and Turner, it was the second-year pro who was the best player on the floor when it was most important and most necessary. And so he's still battling consistency issues. You'll see games where you go, wow, this guy could start in the NBA right now, and then you'll see games where, you know, he really frustrates. However, he's ultimately, I think, somebody that the Pacers really look upon toward their future and say, you know, this is a guy that hopefully is part of our core for a long time, and we like what we've got. And then T.J. McConnell, you know, everybody knows his shortcomings. Not a great defender, doesn't have a ton of length, not a boatload of athleticism, but the guy just gets it done, and he's so consistent. He's a fantastic, fantastic passer, really good vision, and, you know, you watch some of these guys in college basketball and you say, okay, these are college players. These guys aren't going to end up NBA players. And you would watch him and you would say that. And yet it's fascinating to me how he's found a way to make that style not only work in the NBA, but there are games where the Pacers have leaned very, very heavily on him, and he's produced. And he's been, I think, a bit of an underrated signing. I think even in Indiana, where everybody here really respects the fundamentals and the passing and the dribbling aspects of the game, even when they signed him, I think he was a little under the radar because I saw him in Philadelphia, but okay, you know, this probably is going to be a guy that plays major minutes for us, and yet he has, and he's been really, really strong, and at times carried the Pacers when they've had injury issues, and, you know, not only are you missing Brogdon and Oladipo, but they've had injuries to other guards back in the rotation, like an Edmund Sumner, and Jeremy Lamb has missed a handful of games too, where they've had to rely heavily on T.J. McConnell, and I would say so far the T.J. McConnell experience in Indiana has been a big success.
Yeah, no, I think to have those two guys like that while Brogdon's out, I think they do a nice job. And what you're talking about, Holiday, hell, he's a 41% shooter from three-point range. Now, against the Heat, he has shot 25%, so let's hope that continues tonight. Hopefully, you know, no big Holiday night tonight against the Miami Heat. Should be interesting. Hey, Pat, thank you for taking some time, my man. We really appreciate it, especially on short notice. It's going to be a nice matchup tonight. Maybe we'll look you up when we're up there for the NFL Combine that week. I don't know. I wonder if you guys are home during that week. Are you guys home? You are?
They usually give us some home games during that time. I haven't looked at that week, but yeah, absolutely. If you guys are up here, would love to catch up and appreciate the time. This Pacers Heat game, as we were talking about, was so good in Miami. So I'm hoping that we get part 2 of that series. And who knows, maybe even, we're seeing a couple of early episodes in what could be a playoff series come April or May.
Yep, you're right about that.
February 2-2, Charlotte, Tuesday night. Thursday night, 24 is the Trailblazers.
And after that?
Just those two at home during that week of the NFL Combine.
We're not there at the 22nd. It's the 24th through the 2nd.
Yeah, that's
so
it.
The day of the 24th?
That's it.
That's the only home game?
That's our only home.
Against who is it?
Against the Portland Trailblazers.
Oh,
we get to watch
Whiteside.
Clown Boy Whiteside.
Oh, Whiteside. There you go. So how about that? Listen, at that time, Pat, it's still cold in Indiana. So the good thing is we'll have Melo there shooting bricks, and before you know it, you and I will have a chimney so we can stay nice and warm. There you go. Nothing wrong with that.
There you go. It is interesting. I'm sure you guys have talked about it a lot. It's been fascinating how Whiteside is having a good year in Portland, at least statistically. But maybe no correlation there, but he has left Miami, and Miami's gotten a lot better, and Portland has really struggled following their Western Conference Finals season. And I just wonder if there's any correlation. I'm sure that's something you guys have talked a lot more about.
You know what it is, Pat? It's all now that you were able to give Bam the time. Last year, Spo had him there, so he had to break up the time amongst three centers. Now, Bam's playing like an all-star because he's getting all the minutes. Hell, they've even limited Olynyk, along the way. So because Bam right now is he's a great story like Sabonis is. He has just become a great, a stat sheet filler, man. He does it all. Even for a big man, he's getting 4 or 5 assists a night. It's crazy.
No, he's been terrific, and I remember he was kind of in the Pacers neighborhood. We were looking at him as a potential draft pick when he came out of Kentucky, and it is so funny because in a lot of ways Indianapolis and Miami are very, very different cities, and the Heat and the Pacers, are very different in terms of how they can build their type of rosters. But when you actually look at what both teams are achieving this year, how they're getting it done with young centers that potentially will play in this all-star game, and with teams that I think most people expected to be further down the pack, it is fascinating. There is a really significant parallel there.
Oh, wait a minute. I could go to another extreme for you, Pat. The Heat took a page out of the Pacers because the existence of Pat Riley is acquiring Tim and acquiring Zoe and acquiring Shaq and acquiring Mason when Zoe went down, and then acquiring, LeBron and Bosh and now Butler. Because of the bad decisions, Riley's been awesome, but he went through a little brain fart for 3 years where he signed Whiteside and Johnson and Tyler Johnson and what was the other bad contract? I'm forgetting now. Oh, Dion Waiters. And so they were kind of stuck in a rut, and they didn't have a lot of flexibility. And this past season, they had enough to at least get Butler, but they had to go unearth and mine talent. Something they really never really do because they'd rather just buy established talent or trade for it, but they had to go mine Tyler, they had to go mine Duncan, they had to go mine Kendrick Nunn, and they had to draft and develop Bam. And they're trying to do it with Justice as a glue guy. But they've done things that the Pacers had to do because they were cap strapped, whereas the Pacers are kind of strapped because of destination to young NBA players and all that crap that they, like to go to the sexy destinations. The Heat actually had to do what Utah and Indiana do for their existence. They had to say, you know what? We better scout our asses off. We better draft better. We better develop better because we don't have cap flexibility. That's it.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead on, and it's been amazing. I remember thinking a couple of years ago, the Heat have all these seasons close to 500, and their roster is capped out with guys like Tyler Johnson and Dion Waiters, as you noted, and me, and man, they're in some trouble. And obviously, you always have the ability, if you can just free up enough space, to get a Jimmy Butler type over there. But it's been impressive because I think most teams that are gridlocked in the way the Heat at least appear to be gridlocked the last few years would be stuck in that purgatory a little bit longer. And so you're right. The style that they have gotten out of that is very Pacers and Utah Jazz-esque, and I've been impressed with just how quickly this has happened. I thought, Miami might be like a 7 or an 8 this year, and then next year maybe if they got another big acquisition or develop some guys, then they might make the jump that you're seeing this year. It's happened, in my opinion, a year quicker, at least 1 year ahead of schedule, and I think it it just goes to show how well that the front office has done in the regards of doing those little things like drafting, scouting, signing the right guys. There's a lot of teams, that would love to have a Duncan Robinson, a Kendrick Nunn.
Oh.
Those are names that very few people knew outside of if you followed college basketball going into these.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you and I think alike. I thought they were a 7 or 8 seed this year. I never saw any of this coming, dude. I even said the Butler move is not going to be a good move unless you go and trade for another star in the next year or two, because in years 3 and 4 of this deal, you may not be happy with it because Butler may be, a little bit more out of gas at that point, and you're paying him a lot of money at that point. What we're seeing now, I never thought it was going to happen, Pat. It's crazy. It really is.
Yeah, no, I didn't see it. It's certainly not this year, and it was if you could maybe build on Butler in another offseason. They've done it terrifically within. I think Bam's obviously been a big key to that, and I would know not being down there, but it's kind of interesting how maybe here for the first time you're getting Spoelstra's real first opportunity to shine. Obviously, he was under a massive spotlight that had the spotlight on all those other players in the early 2010s, and now for the first time, he had a year a few years ago where Miami really struggled in the first half, and then they rolled off some crazy finish to the season and just missed the playoffs. But this is almost the first time I think a lot of people maybe outside of Miami, and I'm not sure what his opinion is there, but I think a lot of people outside of Miami are going, this guy's a really good coach, and I think that's starting to resonate to the casual fan outside of Florida.
No doubt. Follow him on Twitter at Pat Boylan Pacers. Pat, thank you for taking some time. Great insight, my friend. Really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate you having me on.
Beers on me during the combine. Be good, my brother.
I'm in.
All right, there you go. Pat Boylan from the Pacers, man. Good stuff there. Great conversation. Good to talk a little basketball. Looking forward to the game time. This is one of those games where I can't wait for it. It's like, because it's a heavyweight battle in the Eastern Conference. It's two of the better teams in the Eastern Conference. It's another measuring stick, and they're a gritty team, and it's going to be tough. Question is,
traditionally they are probably our biggest rival. They give us the biggest problem.
Yeah.
Over the years. Yeah. Indiana, man.
Oh, they're always a good franchise.
They do things the right way.
Well, man. It's like it's what the example I gave of them in Utah.
No doubt.
Are completely opposite of Miami and Los Angeles and Houston and Chicago and New York and places that spend money, and they're sexy to young NBA players. Young NBA players don't want to live in Utah. They don't want to live in Indiana. They don't. And let me tell you, it's a cool little downtown area, Indiana. But I get it. If you want big city, it's not the big city. But it's actually a cool – you'll see. You've never been to Indiana. You will be this year. But it's a cool –
I've driven by it. That's about it.
It's cool, man. It's not – I enjoy it every year that I go, and I go for several days. And I think it's a cool area. But I get it. If you're young and hip, you want to go to big towns. It's understandable. All right, let's take a quick break here. Let's tell you about Caneswear. We love talking about Caneswear. And, of course, Brett and all the amazing people at Caneswear. Listen, are you looking for a jersey, a starter's jacket, T-shirts? They've got all kinds of Canes T-shirts. In fact, over 100 in stock. They've got autographed items, too. So get on down to Caneswear. They've got Dolphins, Panthers, Marlins, Heat, and even Inter Miami, too. They've got the T-shirts out there. Jerseys are coming. Once they release the jerseys, they will have the jerseys, both styles. So get on down to Caneswear. Go to the website, caneswear.com. Order online. If you order over $99, free shipping. So if you live too far from Caneswear, you can have it delivered to your house within a couple days, man. Call them, check it out. Go to caneswear.com. Follow them on Twitter at Canes_wear. We are back and rocking. Appreciate you all out there as locking it in on the podcast, on the live broadcast. As always, we appreciate it. And you can chime in here on the YouTube chat board. You can also reach out to us on the accidentlawfirm.com text line, 786-322-1105. That's 786-322-1105. At 1:30, Kobe Price is going to join us. So in a little less than an hour, we'll talk to Kobe Price from the South Florida Sun Sentinel. We'll talk a little Heat basketball with him. Speaking of basketball, and let's talk a little bit about Anthony Davis. Yesterday, and this is a game I lost yesterday, actually. I had I took the
You
over.
played the over, I know.
Yes, the Knicks, Lakers, right?
Seemed like the Knicks didn't chime in. They were like 54 to 80 something.
Yeah. But it was pacing for a short time, and then he got injured and he took that fall. And by the way, he had an MRI, which came back negative, and it's just a bruised back. But he was walking, gingerly off the court. And the thing that I would tell you that when I saw that, I thought right away of him turning down the contract earlier in the day. So here's a guy that is often injured, okay? And by the way, when people tell you, well, if you look at the games missed, no. You can't just look at the games missed. You got to look at also the games he leaves, like last night, which he does this all the time. This is not the first game he's left already in the Lakers season. And I got to tell you something. I know that he can wait for a $205 million 5-year max deal. But he turned down a four-year, $146 million deal yesterday. And he says he's going to hit free agency. Now, remember, his agent is LeBron's agent. So this is all weird, too, in a way, because you would figure that he went there because he's going to stay there. I don't know. I don't know what his relationship is like with LeBron. I don't know if this is just posturing. There really isn't much negotiations going on. It's a max deal is a max deal. Now, he can't get that 205 from somebody else. I think it's like 150 he has to settle for, so it'll be $50 million less. But my point is, if you're Anthony Davis and you're injury prone as hell, how do you not take that money already? I know you want to hold out, but man, this should have been a reminder what happened last night. Because this is a fragile dude. This is also another reason why I picked the Clippers over the Lakers. The Lakers are not pacing themselves. Whereas the Clippers, Kawhi's like, no, dude. I'm going to play my game. I'm going to rest. Paul George is going to also rest. We're going to alternate. We're going to and let me see, I can look at the standings right now if you want. And they're fine in the standings. They're right up there. They don't need to panic. They're not number one like the Lakers are, but the Lakers might be limping into the playoffs if they don't pace themselves. And I get it that LeBron came in motivated and he had a terrible year last year and was out of the playoffs and he wants to prove to the world and all that, so he's coming out and they're 30-7. And the Clippers are 26-12. They're 4.5 games behind. Just pacing themselves. Right there. They're staying within striking distance. And let me tell you, the Lakers have a prolonged injury to LeBron or to Anthony Davis, and you're going to see them fall in the standings. I saw that yesterday, and when the first thing I thought of was, dude, you just turned down $150 million, guaranteed. I mean, as injury-prone as you are, I don't know if you should be doing that. You're going to make other money anyways on the side with sponsors and things like that. So you can make up that $50 million somewhere. Listen, $150 million, $200 million, I get it, there's a difference, but you should be able to live off fine from that for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Now, if you want to be stupid with the money, like let's say a guy like Antonio Brown, right? I mean, Antonio Brown ends up broke. Is there any doubt in your mind that Antonio Brown ends up broke?
when you're tearing up hotel rooms, apartment buildings, throwing couches off of balconies.
Didn't you hear that he went to I know he doesn't pay half the people that work for him, but still.
That's how he saves all his money.
But he went to the Saints with an entourage. You had to pay for that entourage. They're not paying for themselves. And you're like out of work and you have an entourage and you're spending all this money and rap videos and all this stuff is costing him money. Lawyers are costing him money. He will end. This will be a sad story, guaranteed. But Anthony Davis is a smart guy. He's not one of those guys. Okay? Take the money. Wow. I just, a guy like that fragile, that's the thing that came to my mind yesterday. When I'm watching that injury, I'm like, dude, you just turned down 150. Your fragile ass is not really in position to be turning down 150. Take it, dude. That'll help keep your unibrow trimmed for the rest of your life. Trust me. You'll be fine. What? You want to turn down $146 million? Okay. Roll the dice. Roll the dice on that fragile little body of yours. And go ahead. 130, Kobe Price. He's not fragile. No. Kobe's a tough guy. Anthony Davis can learn a lot from Kobe Price. Kobe covers FAU. He covers UM. He covers the Heat. He covers the Dolphins, the Marlins, the Panthers. He's waiting for Inter Miami to start. He'll cover them too. He's a tough guy. Anthony Davis, not so tough. Not so tough. Take the $150 million, Anthony Davis. I'm telling you. All right. 786-322-1105. That's 786-322-1105 on the accidentlawfirm.com text line. And then, of course, call Bobby Nunez if you need some help. Trust me, he is the man. I appreciate Bobby Nunez and being a proud sponsor of our program. Reminder, tomorrow we're going to be at Toyota of Hollywood. Why? Because we're at Toyota of Hollywood every Thursday now from 11 to 3. How about that? So if you happen to be in the Hollywood area, bring me some Dandy Donuts. Come on by. Mojo's close by. You want to bring me Mojo Donuts? I'll take them too. Right? You're going to complain? Dandy or Mojo? You're going to complain? No?
Neither. I'm good.
Okay.
Please, just bring them.
Just want to make sure that we got to make
glazed donuts.
Yes, glazed. So we're in Hollywood tomorrow, 11 to 3. So come on by and say hi. We would love to see you out there. I'll be out there in my beautiful Camry XSE. God, I love that car. Man, that car is fun to drive. Such a good car and comfortable. Drives so smooth. Man, that was a good purchase. That was a really good purchase on my part. Man, it's awesome. But anyway, we will be out there. Friday, we got 2 shows. Okay? Every Friday, 2 shows. Friday, we're at Craig's Inn, Acura of Pembroke Pines. We'll be broadcasting from 9 to 11 there every Friday. Then we move over to Hialeah Park, and we do 1 to 4 over at Hialeah Park. And I believe this is our last week at the Champion Simulcast Center, correct? I think. So we will be at the Champion Simulcast Center plunging our guts out. We won some last week. Didn't really bet. I did bet a horse or two the week before, didn't win. But last week did win a couple. So we'll be out there. You can have fun. Come on out there. Bet the horses with us, man. Talk some sports during our short breaks. You know what I mean? What was it? Yesterday I closed out the show, and Bill goes to me, you know that you talked for a straight hour, that you didn't take a break in the last hour. I had no idea that I didn't take a break for an hour yesterday. The 4th hour was straight talk all the way through. See if you're going to get straight talk anywhere on the dial. Oh, we had Pat Boylan on for like 25 minutes, that interview, talking everything Pacers and Heat. You think you're going to get a thorough interview? No, dude. They hurry you up in 8 or 9 minutes because they got to get another 8 or 9 minute break. You want real sports talk? You tune in here every single day. You get like a legit our 4 hours of sports talk, you know that in regular radio is like 8 hours. So you could take your own breaks while you're listening to us, and it'll be like a whole day. That's all. I mean, considering what our producers, the work that our producers put in to this show every single day, that's it makes it nice and easy for you guys as they break it down into segments, which is a beautiful thing. Armed Ape says, much better format. Oh, hell yeah. For the listener, it's way better, man. We give you a couple mentions because we have to have some, we have to have sponsors. We need to survive.
Got to pay the bills.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, definitely. And this is how we get to go to the East West Shrine and the Senior Bowl and cover it for you guys and all that. That's why you support us by downloads. You support us by supporting our sponsors and things like that, and tell them that we sent you. These are all big. So we can grow, and we can cover more things. I want to cover more things next year, but that's as we grow. We will travel even more because I want to be the show, and I want to create also, we're all meeting in Vegas. Well, I want to start to see if we get something going on where we all create our own trips together. The show goes out on the road, Final Four, something big boxing match in Vegas. We all go. Big MMA match. We all fly out. Big groups. Super Bowl. Go all fly out. Things like that. NBA Finals. Go out. Plunge our guts. It's a beautiful thing. We'll think of different things to do together, and we'll get it all, and we'll get packages and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we want to do. We want to grow together, all of us here, and grow the audience. And this is your show. That's the idea. This is the show that wants to connect with the listeners. That's why we're going to go out to the MetLife takeover next year for the Dolphins and the Jets. We're going to broadcast in the middle of that craziness because that's what we want to do. Those are the things we want. We're going to go back out to Vegas. I mean, if I didn't, Bill would kill me. But, we're going to go out to Vegas again for the Raiders game against the Dolphins next year. We'll go out there for that week. All these kind of things we want to add to the program. But obviously we need your help in order to get it done.
Crocus is going to cooperate with us. And the week we play at Denver, Crocus is going to be out there.
Yep. That would be nice. My thoughts on the Instagram post: he should retire. He'll be 43 years old next year. His talent is in decline, and he's terrified to get hit in the pocket. He should walk off while he has his health. Nico, you are 1,000% right. He should do that, but he's not. And we've seen this before, the athlete that wants to hang on. Okay? Ty from the Bronx says, Herbert, Hurts, and Burrow all going to the Senior Bowl. Love is the man. No, not Burrow, not yet. Unless there's something that broke about Joe Burrow. I haven't seen it. But Joe Burrow has not committed to – Joe Burrow, you won't hear anything about him going to the Senior Bowl till after Monday. Okay? Tuesday or Wednesday, you will hear if Burrow says, no, I'm not going. Yes, I'm going. He's not going to announce this, at least I don't believe, before the Senior Bowl, unless I'm wrong here and you guys know something that he already announced it. I haven't seen anything while I'm doing the show. But if you know something, fill me in here. Armed Ape says, does Belichick stand for this? And does he getting rid of people before the juice runs out includes himself? That's why I'm telling you. We're going to find out about how much these guys really love each other. Ian from Brooklyn says, Brady looks like a wrapped mummy out there. Walk off into the sunset for Pete's sake. It's cool for Brady to walk out now if he wants to. The guy doesn't need to prove anything else. But I got to tell you something. Can I give Doll fans a scenario out there? The perfect scenario. Okay? Brady wants to come back. All right, it's great. Come on back, dude. Go to the Patriots. maybe they lose it, man. Maybe they're not that good again next year. Maybe they take another step back thinking that they were going to. Maybe Brady takes another step back because Father Time continues to catch up to him. Reflexes are slower, arms not as strong, all those kind of things. And how about this? How about maybe the Dolphins improve and not just take one in Foxborough, but take the one also here? And while Miami started the demise of the Patriots this past season, because it wasn't Tennessee and Derrick Henry, because the more impressive win is Miami in Foxborough than Tennessee in Foxborough. Tennessee's got a guy that runs for 200 yards a game, dude. There's a reason why New England lost. You tell me the reason why New England lost to Miami. That's more impressive. Miami is the one that started the demise. If Brady wants to come back, and if the Dolphins make the right moves next year, maybe they stick it to Brady twice next year. And maybe it's Miami that forces Brady the hell out of football. I got to tell you, I would enjoy a little bit of that. Okay? I don't mean anything bad to the guy and all that stuff. I don't want to hurt him. I don't, I don't wish that on anybody. Okay? But I wouldn't mind the Dolphins kicking their ass a couple times next year. I wouldn't mind them being the heavyweight champ that slipped, that is no longer got that power anymore, is getting clobbered now, getting embarrassed in the ring. I wouldn't mind that. So if Brady's getting older, if he's slipping a little, he's slipping, he's falling, he can't get up. He can't get back on his feet so he can tear up. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. There's a part of me that would take a little pleasure in that. That if he does come back and the Dolphins can really get the best of him next year, I would kind of enjoy it. I know Ted Johnson was enjoying stealing signs from Dan Marino at the end of his career. I would love payback, baby. I mean, think about it. Do you want him to walk away and you haven't spanked him enough? I kind of enjoy this. Yeah, come on back. Maybe the Dolphins can add the knockout punch to your career. So there you go. Listen, the Dolphins aren't supposed to win anyway, and they won this year. So who's to say they don't get better next year? Just a little thought. That's all. Just something to think about. 786-322-1105. Folks, don't forget the National Horse Players Championship qualifier is coming to Hialeah Park on January 12th. That's this Sunday. And Bill and I, by the way, are going to be broadcasting out there from 11 to 1. Okay? We'll be out there, and we'll be watching people wager their guts out because there's $10,000 that they are awarding. Not only could you win in your bets, but if you're really good and you win the first place prize, $5,000 and a trip to Vegas and a seat in the NHC. Oh, by the way, that includes hotel and airfare, your trip to Vegas. Now, it is February 7th through the 9th at Bally's this year. But the winner will have the option. You can go to this year's tournament or 2021. So just in case you already have plans in February and you can't go, you have a year to then get it straight with your job or whatever, so you can then go and set it up for yourself. How about that? That's really cool, giving you the option to go to the championship of the NHC either this year or next year. So save the date. It's this Sunday, the 12th. Go to HialeahPark.com. Find out more. Your chance to win a seat in the Las Vegas Finals. Your chance to win $5,000. They're awarding money first through fourth place. Even fourth place gets $1,000. So if you're pretty good at this, even if you're not good at this, you could probably win, okay? So get on down there, and we will be at the Champions Simulcast Center at Hialeah Park. We'll be out there this Friday, 1 to 4, and then Sunday again from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at HialeahParkCasino.com.